This episode of Ludonarrative Dissidents is brought to you by Chris, who wants to shout out his friends who recommended this podcast to him. He also wants to shout out James for sinking his barge. Thank you for supporting the Kickstarter, Chris. Enjoy the episode.
This is Ludonarrative Dissidents, a podcast about tabletop role-playing games, how they're made and how they're played. Over the next hour, 3 experienced game designers, Ross Payton, Greg Stolze, and me, James Wallace, will field strip a game or supplement, discussing how it works, how players use it, and what we can learn from it. Read show notes for each episode on our website, www.ludonarrativedissidents.com, where you can also join our Discord server, and find links to our library of previous episodes. But for the moment, enjoy this episode of Ludonarrative Dissidents.
Hello, and welcome to Ludonarrative Dissidents. This is Season 3, Episode 12, Black Chrome, a supplement for Cyberpunk Red, a tech and style guide for Cyberpunk Red, to be specific. But this is the gear guide, or a gear guide for Cyberpunk Red, which we just reviewed in our previous episode. And gear guides and item guides are a classic RPG tradition, so we have to dig into them. And it's all the latest gear, new weapons, new gear, new vehicles. And of course, I'm joined here by my friends and co-hosts, James Wallace and Greg Stolze.
Hoi hoi.
Evening.
And it's a supplement that is written by a number of people. And part including James Hutt, Jay Parker, Turbo J. Gray, Ann Morrison, Chris Spivey, Linda Evans, and Melissa Wong.
Chris Spivey, that's Harlem Unbound, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. Unless there's another.
I still got to read
Spivey,
that sometime.
Yeah.
That and I got to get his. I've never heard anyone say a single bad thing about his work.
Yeah, it's very good. I have read and run an adventure from Harlem Unbound, so
of course you have. Drink, yes. Listeners.
We got that out of the way,
and I will get this out of the way. In the dark future of the red, there is only the future conditional tense. It wasn't that bad, but it was there. Little. Jumped out and poked me in the eye a couple times.
This is an interesting gear guide because before we get into details and everything, my biggest takeaway is that the old Chromebooks, the old gear guides for Cyberpunk were written in the era where mail order catalogs, the Sears catalog and things like it were the metaphor, very common, very popularly used. And this is now a gear guide for the age of eBay and buying online. And this is sort of trying to bridge that gap between the two.
It is interesting that in some ways, the present in which we live has lapped the science fiction setting of Cyberpunk, and that in the original days of Cyberpunk, they never were like, what? You can't just order a thing and have it there the next day. What? How's that work? A wizard does it? And the answer, it turns out, is no. A lot of desperately overworked, miserable people ripped to the tits on methamphetamines and peeing in bottles do it. So
The other thing about the original Chromebooks is they were pursuing, I think it was a print metaphor. They were presented as magazines. They might have been magazines on a screen, but they looked very much like magazines. And this one starts off by kind of going, well, we don't do that anymore. I mean, I used to work in magazines. The magazine industry is not dead, but it's not looking too well, I can tell you.
It's very, very sleepy.
It is. So the idea that, by 2045, you're buying a magazine to look at your latest installs and upgrades is kind of ludicrous. So they go with a kind of an app metaphor, which doesn't, for me at least, does not work in print or as the way it is presented. To have a little buy button underneath every single entry just feels like it's trying too hard and at the same time hasn't asked itself whether this actually works.
So interesting point. Did you notice on the PDF for that every single buy now would go, when you click on it in the PDF version, would take you to the stats at the end of the book?
No, I didn't.
Mine doesn't do that.
Oh, okay. Well, it does. It does for me. Are you looking at it through a browser or through a standalone PDF reader?
I'm looking at it through a standalone PDF reader.
Huh. Interesting.
As am I.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it comes up with text that says buy now when you mouse over it, but it's not actually taking you anywhere.
Huh. Interesting. So,
Maybe-
yeah. So technology,
James and
it's
I
complicated.
I know it's weird because the arrows that advance the pages within the page design, they do work as hyperlinks. The other ones are, and the page number takes you to the end of the book. But no, the buy nows don't seem to do that. Maybe we have different versions.
See, I want to try out the little arrow on my PDF reader, but every time I mouse over it, the Ask AI Assistant button on my...
Yeah, that's something else they didn't anticipate.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
this is
because
a
it's too
book that is
ridiculous.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is,
we're in more of a paranoia future than a cyberpunk future in some ways.
It's-
Yeah.
I mean, it is a comment about the state of the world that this setting that started out as a dystopia and has only gotten worse as the years go by, from the metric of, oh, well, you know, you used to be able to buy stuff and now you have to go to a night market to buy stuff. And also this nuclear weapon blew up a whole city. And also there's all this environmental stuff. And it's still not getting worse as fast as life. And we have lapped the cyberpunk dystopia.
Yeah.
No argument.
Also, Black Chrome is an interesting book because most gear guides, I think, in RPGs are, you know, one of the player facing supplements, right? Like most books for RPGs are meant more for the GM than the players. But like gear guides are sort of one of the exceptions of this. The common thing in many role-playing games is that the gear guides introduce power creep. And certainly in Cyberpunk 2020, this was a factor. Chromebook 1 through 4 had definitely a power creep where that's how you get players to buy the book in reality is hey, this gun has more pluses. It does roll. This gun rolls more dice. It's just better. And that, of course, destabilizes the game balance as the GM who's used to one thing suddenly has the player steamrolling in opposition and sort of changing the entire balance of the game. But yeah.
This is a unexpected drawback to the economics of the way that games were produced and supported, in that, okay, well, you know, you at first you made the game and you're like, okay, each group needs to buy the game and that's fine. And then they're like, well, you know, there's one person in the group who will buy these dungeons. So 1 in 4 or 5 people is actually of the people who are using our product. Only 20% of them are actually financially supporting the company that makes the product. And then they're like, well, what if we made something for the other 4/5, something for the players? And so one answer is the gear guide. The White Wolf answer was the Splat book. And that was what really, you know, catapulted them to being an upper tier in the profitability. Is they're like, oh, most of the people playing our games also want to give us money. Whereas a lot of games, even Dungeons and Dragons, are in the situation of people who play our games don't want to give us money and don't. They don't have to.
I'm just going to dive in because, you know, there's going to be people out there who don't know what a Splat book is. The Splat books were and are player-facing game expansions, specifically ones about, suppose you're playing an elf fighter, you can buy, a Splat book is the complete elf book, including new powers for elves, and the complete fighter book. There you go. You've bought 2 extra books, $30 each, ka-ching, but you've got the cool powers now. That's a Splat book. Extend for vampire, clans, all the rest of it.
And you get, you know, a frustrated novelist or someone who is good at writing game mechanics, or ideally both. And they do some, so, okay, so here is going to be the really interesting elfin history, so that, you know, when you're playing your elf, if you want to mention, oh, I feel just like Tholian did when the gates of dawn were riven. you can make that comment, and someone else who's read the elf book will get it, and someone who hasn't read the elf book will be, the Gates of Dago, what are you talking about? And then you get to explain it and be slightly and feel slightly more well informed. Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah, I mean, and they were good for a while, and this is continuing in that along those lines. Something I've attempted to do in my own idiosyncratic indie game releases is, okay, just ransom it out and anyone can get it forever. But first, I have to get all the money that I'm ever going to get from it, which has pluses and minuses. The plus being that people don't feel gate kept out. And they don't feel that they have to run on a treadmill of constantly keeping up with the next new thing. The drawback being, I make less money, which, man, less money than is typically made in gaming is, wow, that's a drawback.
Yeah, for sure. What Black Chrome does is tries to update this paradigm. And we've already talked about like how it's designed as an app through its layout and through instead of being like, again, the Sears catalog / magazine look of the previous books. And it does have the same sort of categories of like the majority of the book is like new stuff for player characters to buy. But it's bookmarked or bookended, rather, with some world setting material, talking about C-Book, which is the app you use. But it's not like an internet app. It's like a local mesh app where you have to be in range of a night market.
This was my favorite thing about the whole book, because I'm reading about this. The way it's set up. I don't mean to steal this from you, Ross, but I'm gonna. So night markets are, in the dark future of Cyberpunk Red, international shipping and the infrastructure of global commerce is kind of in the toilet. So to get stuff, it's a crapshoot. You need to have a fixer to arrange any big purchase for you, which, man, when I hit the bit where it's like, I need to have someone in my party who's the right character class or I can't go shopping. That kind of bumped me. But with with Black Chrome, the idea is you've gone to this open air marketplace and there is this app the night market there's this app that will help you find the particular thing that you're looking for among the thousands of half repaired pieces of trash. And I read this and I'm like, did they just describe Grinder for laser katanas? Because they kind of did. It's like, okay, I'm looking for this Man Killer 5000 gun in opalescent pink with the collectible hand. Oh, yeah, it's four rows over and 2 columns up. Look for the guy called Toothy. Toothy will sell this to me for how much? Oh, man, Toothy sucks. And that's the idea behind Chromebook, is that instead of just, I'm going to walk into future Death Walmart and, buy one Man Killer 5000 off the shelf of identical Man Killer 5000s in the Man Killer 1 through 5000 aisle, it's going to be like, no, you're going to have to mini quest this, and it will establish that you're a guy who knows his weapons and is looking specifically for the 5000, not the crappy ass 4000. And that you want the pearlescent pink because you are so secure in your masculinity that you can change up your gender signifiers a little in the middle of a fight. And so, yeah, it sets you in the cyberpunk style thing.
Mm-hmm. I thought the stuff at the beginning and the end of the book, which, at the end of the book, it describes various night markets and the people who run them, and actually gives you floor plans for if you want to run it as a miniatures fight, which I felt was kind of pushing it there are certain things in the book that make it clear the tone in which you are expected to run this. A quarter of the book is weapons. I don't mean weapons and armor and grenades and stuff. Weapons, things that you point at people and go bang with. Quarter of the book. This is a game fundamentally based on a first-person shooter video game. I mean, I know it's a MM thing, but no, you move your cursor over people.
Oh, James, is the game based on the video game, or is the video game based on the game? Time is a flat circle, James. The beginning is the end is the beginning.
It feels like a book that draws its roots from a game in which you move your mouse cursor over someone and press your mouse button, and you see them flinch as they take not enough damage to kill them. As gearbooks go, I had a really interesting time comparing it to the original Chromebooks, which, as the title implies, Chrome is decoration. It's not functional. And a large part of the ethos of this edition and indeed all previous editions of Cyberpunk is style over substance. It's a very flashy, look at me, I need to look good future. There's actually a little manifesto at the start, which we talked about in the previous episode, as we were talking about, that basically boils down to style over substance. And the original Chromebooks stuffed with artwork. It's the early 90s. They came out, Chromebook 1 and 2 came out 1991, 1992. It's black and white line art or with zipper tone. It's really nicely done, and it just drops you into that world. This one, there are pictures of the items, basically, rather than characters. And they are mostly bits of tech. It's not, bolt-on arms and stuff like that. It's mostly, there's a large section, the Dirk combat jacket, which takes up a half page. And you finally get to the meat, the little bit in italics that tells you what it does in games terms. It's a light armorjack body armor with the appearance of leisurewear fashion. 2 standard size clips of ammunition can be concealed in the jacket without a check. Really? That's it? That's worth half a page and sort of an illustration? There's quite a lot of that. There's quite a lot of color text that doesn't bring stuff alive. Quite a lot of stuff that doesn't actually have an illustration.
I think most of it is illustrated. It's pretty minimal, but there are, except for the apps and things like that. I mean,
yeah.
And sometimes they do things like for the cyber fingers, they just have one page of art for all of the cyber fingers. They show 2 cyber hands with 10 fingers, and there's 10 types of cyber fingers to use. So, but yeah, there are minimal illustrations. Each thing gets one little picture, not big splash. I remember the old Chromebooks too, because my friend and RPPR cast member Tom, he loved Cyberpunk, and of course for him it was all about the full conversion cyborgs. He loved, because he is a furry. Probably admits he loved being I want to be the big furry, and also the Dragoon, which is I think the name of the full military cyborg. The players are just immediately drawn to the big. I can destroy anything. They want their vorpal swords, they want their rocket launchers, they want their full conversion cyborgs. The power fantasy. That's the appeal of it. And,
there you go.
Yeah. But this book doesn't have that. It doesn't have full conversion cyborgs. But I figured they were saving that for another book.
But you do have the linear frames, which I liked quite a bit. I'm oh, it's like a mech suit, but fun-sized.
Yeah, it's a step in between full conversion and nothing. So, yeah, or just body armor. They do have that. I guess they watched...
It's like the one we were talking about in Paranoia, in the yellow clearance black box blues, where you can either get the top half of what's basically a linear frame or the bottom half, but not both. And but obviously, linear frames are kind of the po-faced version of that.
All right, so what did you guys think of the illustration? Let me find it on page 16 of the Vitruvian Man with a with a different cyber limb on every arm and 2 of his legs, and the naughty bits blurred out.
Well, yeah,
because there's a part of me that's man, just let the dangle be, and part of me is no, I don't think I actually want to see that, which makes me think that maybe the Vitruvian Man was a poor choice for concept.
I
don't
think
know.
they should have had him in like some sort of like cyberpunk suit or something like that, like some sort of.
Just slap some Mickey Mouse boxers on this dude.
Yeah, no, I mean I understand why they did it. It just makes it selling the book so much harder because of all international jurisdictions and rules over that.
Well, it used to,
but he's blurred out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be
he's
that
a Ken doll.
Any kind of nudity in a role-playing game supplement, I think it was White Wolf had a book pulled or possibly banned by their publisher. Their printer wouldn't print it because in the very stylized heading, there was a very stylized mermaid nipple. And the printer, and this was mid-90s, just went, no, that's nudity, we're not touching it.
God.
It used to be... People were incredibly
We can't print mermaid nipples. It'll cause anarchy. The youths will riot.
Yeah, it was strange times. This one, I have to say what I wanted, and let's be honest, a huge percentage of their sales are going to be online. They're going to be PDFs. I was expecting to see something augmented down there. There's a fantastic early kind of pseudo cyberpunk thing by KW Jeter called, I am completely blanking on the title, that's really annoying. There was an edition illustrated by Matt Howarth in which it's a world, very kind of post Philip K. Dick world, but there's an awful lot of prostitutes in there, and an awful lot of them have augmentations. And the advantage of text is you don't have to illustrate anything, even if you're Matt Howarth. You can describe certain bits of it in the way that William Gibson actually does really well. You just describe the bits that kind of matter and leave the rest to the viewer's imagination. There's so much potential of what you could have put in this guy's genital area that weren't genitals, but in many ways would have been worse. But without actually being obscene. And I think that would have been really interesting. Because let's face it, there are people doing this stuff to their bits already.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Not necessarily with chips.
Just rivets, etc.
Rivets, yeah. It's,
studs.
Modern primitives came out in what, 88, 89?
I've seen stuff I can't unsee.
They do mention there's a type of lubricant in the book used for medical and sexual reasons. So they do have.
That joke is okay.
Yeah.
It is hard to make an a pretty decent joke, but the joke that, the mechanical lubricant and the personal lubricant and the medical lubricant all come in this. They're made by the same company and they're all different, and you don't want to get them confused. But man, the branding is really not clear, so you got to really read which can you picked.
Yeah, the items are divided in different categories: apps, cyberware, fashion, linear frames, vehicles, and weapons. And as we mentioned, weapons is a very big
linear frames, vehicles, weapons, and weapons.
Yeah, fashion also goes into includes armor. So because as you know, some of the armor suits are fashionable. In fact, they have modifiers for style. +2. The laser light street jacket has +2 wardrobe and style bonus for wearing 3 if you have 3 installations of light tattoos on them. Reading some of the commentary about this book online, some people crunched the numbers and looked and saw that what this book does is it tries to avoid the power creep thing that plagued earlier books. And instead,
God bless.
Yeah. And some people sort of complained about that. It's like, what's the point of buying this? And I think the strategy, players be players and they want their Dragoon.
The opposite of God bless.
Yeah. Is to create lateral upgrades, like upgrades that create new functionality. And I think this game is very story forward, or this book is very story forward, because I'm sure we've all done mini sessions of role-playing games, especially earlier on, where the session, not much happened because the players had just, beaten a dungeon or pulled off a job, and so they had a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
And so it's just, let's just look through these books and go on a shopping spree.
Which is fun.
It is fun. What this...
Throw in a couple of NPCs. Squiggo the Goblin gets in there. Inevitably, there's some weird little NPC they latch onto, and that gives you a material for next couple of sessions or cameo appearances for the rest of the campaign.
I just want to sell you my potion.
I love shopping sessions.
Well, that's the thing. Black Chromes says, well, let's take the shopping session and make it into an actual proper adventure, because you have to go out and find this stuff, and you have to barter, or you have to negotiate, and you have to get in. Like the 6 night markets they talk about aren't always available. In fact, they have like, how often are they available? Because these are like events, as much as they aren't like regular stores you go to. They show up only so many times, and you also have to be invited in, or you have to be allowed in, or you have to have a certain reputation with a faction in order to be allowed in. And so it becomes one thing. It gives the fixer character a lot more story agency, because they're the fixers. Social abilities and their ability to fix things really comes into play here. Players now like, okay, well, if you want your cool laser katana, well, it's at this night market, and you have to get in, and that's going to be a whole thing.
They don't let you into this night market unless you sing the blues.
Yeah, or you have to like do a job for this guy or this fixer, or you have to be friendly with these people, or you have to abide by the social etiquette. There's a dress code for like, there's a high end one for the very rich.
I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have to wear the house tie and jacket.
Yeah, exactly. That's the overall pitch of this book, right? Is that let's just make shopping in game something that happens, rather than something that just we all sit around our books and make notes in our little character sheet and like tell the GM what we wound up buying. And the things, I don't know how well that would actually, it's a really interesting idea. I don't know how well that actually plays, or how well this is implemented.
It cuts both ways, I feel. So, okay, with Termination Shock, when I was, writing this science fiction game, one of the things that really seemed apparent to me is that a large pleasure of science fiction games, maybe even more than Dungeon Fantasy, maybe at least as much as Dungeon Fantasy, is the gear part. That, what is going to set your character apart in some ways. I mean, yeah, it's the love and connection you have with your friends, but also the stuff you own. And that I tried to make the gear interesting and give it, enough conditions that it involves you mentally, that, like, okay, I have this awesome gun, but I have to be very careful, because if I use it wrong, it's going to explosively decompress this ship wall. And then I'll be Peter Panned out dying in the icy void of space with my awesome gun. The way the fortune teller predicted. This is a little of the same thing. It's like, shopping is, the stuff of Cyberpunk is so innate to it. And it is so much a game about acquiring possessions and having your possessions represent your identity and who you are. So like, well, let's have getting stuff be a big thing. At the same time, I remember back in the 90s, children, there was a print magazine on actual paper called The Familiar, and I wrote reviews and columns for it. And it had a cartoon in the back and one episode of, I can't remember the name of the comic strip, but one part that stayed with me is you see these people playing this game, and you also see what's happening in the game, and that they've gone through all this stuff, and they've, finally reached the town where the things are going to happen. And like, okay, so you've done all this stuff to avoid, you've crossed the border and you've infiltrated, and you come up out of you come up through the underground tunnels, and, and they walk into the town, and this guy just looks at them and points and yells, "Mutants!" And it cuts to the player throwing his papers in the air, and he's like, "Damn it, you do this every time. Can't we just go somewhere? Can't we just do something? Can't we just get something finished?" And I can see the idea of every shopping trip as an adventure turning into that kind of frustration of, I just want my Man Killer 5000. Can't I just, does this have to be a dramatic thing that tests my ethical resolve? No, I just want to get this gun so that we can do our shit.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like the proverbial roundabout or playground equipment water pump in African villages, which may be entirely apocryphal. I don't know if you know this. Somebody had the brilliant idea of, African villages, put in a well, but you need a pump. But pumps are, why don't you put a kind of one of those spinny roundy things and the kids can play on it and they'll pump the water? Yeah, but what if there's no kids? What if the kids are in school and, the 40-year-old, single person needs to fill 3 tanks of water is going to have to manipulate this thing on their own? Not thought through. Don't make them do it every time. Have it there as a thing that you can bring out. But the moment you make some, we've all played video games where you have to go through that stuff every single time to do something that ought to be pretty straightforward. And it's just, I've quit games because of that.
It's not quite pixel bitching, but it's like, I'm sure that someone among our ludonarratively educated listeners can tell me exactly the video game where you roll up to the shop and the first time you go there is this little video or interaction or set of menus that you go through that says something interesting about the character, and then you buy your stuff. And then the next time you go there, it's like, can I please just skip to the buying of the stuff phase? But no, they play the little video again, or no, you got to go through the character stuff again. I'm sure there are dozens of games like
Sounds
this.
like a Sierra
Please
Arts
go
game.
On our Discord. Yeah. Please go on our Discord and tell me about all of them.
Yeah, the old Sierra Arts games were notorious for that kind of.
It's not quite pixel bitching, but it's an associated problem.
Sure. So it kind of requires, I think, to make the most use out of this book, to sort of rethink of like how you approach the paradigm of players buying new gear and like what you want buying new gear and acquiring equipment to be in your game. You could just say, we're only going to deal with this for expensive or dangerous items like weapons that are worth over a certain amount of money. What I would do if I was writing Cyberpunk is would integrate this into the campaign and make this like a source of jobs or missions where it's just acquiring equipment, because also the back end of the book talks about the economics and the logistics of this and why this exists in Cyberpunk Red. And as James mentioned earlier, I think one of you mentioned the logistics and global economy is kind of been disrupted because of the corporate wars. And so this is sort of in fact, they talk about, where does your item come from? Well, it's probably made by a local technician in a workshop somewhere, if it doesn't come from a local factory. And make the adventure where the players are just you need to source this equipment for me. You need to source this item so this executive can use it or whatever. And so it becomes the job, right? Just finding this stuff and delivering it to a client. You could have interesting encounters in there. Like if the players have a hated adversary, have them be shopping for items at the same time as they're at the night market. And like, well, we can't
get to the wanted item first. Oh, I just sold it. I
really want to kill that guy, but like if I kill that guy, I'm going to be banned from the market. That's assuming the security guards don't kill me. But wait, he doesn't know I'm not here.
This is the only place that has fresh kale.
It has the only place for fresh kale. What if I sneak? What if I can get up close to him and plant a bug on him? What if I do this? It becomes this opportunity for. What if I just go up to him, talk smack to him, and like maybe lie to him and plant some disinformation? There's all these opportunities, or like and then the other thing is like, oh, okay, we're only going to this night market, and you have to go in the book and find the items that are for sale at this particular night market, and that's all we can buy this session. Or the player's like, well, I need to go get my my laser katana. I'll just go off on my own to this place, and then they can have everyone splits up.
A little side quest.
Yeah, a little side quest. So
something I saw pop up on RPGNet recently was, do people actually like sandbox games? Where there isn't a structure and a quest. And Cyberpunk clearly is a very quest-oriented narrative structure where they're like, you get this job. And the examples in here are, okay, so you've got this job and you need the equipment to get the job. But to get the equipment to do the job, you need to do a pre-job to get the guy who can get the equipment to get the equipment so you can do the prime job, which could be really iterative and a giant pain in the ass and just, can't we just get somewhere? But it could also, if handled wisely, be, interesting and the good kind of details. And The thing I've thought about with the do people actually like sandboxes, I'm like, the players who like sandboxes are the same kind of players who are pretty cool about being GMs. Mm-hmm. If you're a GM and your GM is running if you usually GM and you get in a sandbox game, you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be sweet. I'm going to have so much agency. Mm-hmm. But there are players who are just like, I just want to pull a thread and follow the thread. Is that wrong? Does that make me dumb and a bad person? No. I just tell me what the game is and I'll play the game. Mm-hmm. Tell me what the monster is that I'm investigating for Delta Green and I will investigate that monster. I will not fight the concept of the game. Just give me something to start with and don't expect me to build your game from scratch. And it occurs to me that a middle ground between, oh, you can do whatever you want, have a complete blank sheet with no guidance, and, you know, if you spin your wheels, well, that's what you chose. You know, so that's on one end. And on the other end is you will follow this step by step and any deviation will be punished. But the middle ground, imagine this, is that you're playing Cyberpunk and it's like, okay, the night market pops up every month. And every month you guys are going to go to the night market and you're going to look for stuff that you want. And that's also where you're going to get the jobs, because the stuff you want will determine the jobs you get. And the jobs you get will determine the stuff you can afford. The players who want a lot of agency can be like, okay, these are the kinds of jobs I'll take. The players who just want to follow a thread, who just want, just give me some breadcrumbs in a trail and I'll eat breadcrumbs and be happy. Those players can be just like, okay, there are like 3 jobs I could take here. And if I buy the sniper rifle, I'm going to have to do job 4. But I picture my character as a sniper rifle guy. So let's do job 4. And then as the GM, you don't have to have everything planned out months in advance, which some GMs love, but is always vulnerable to having a player say, no, I'm just not interested in that. I'm going to do this other thing. This little guy with the accent is really interesting to me. Let's just follow that. And
yeah.
And now your 3 months of planning is in the crapper.
Yeah.
So this could be a good intermediate structure. Is every 4th week we got to go back to the market. We got to do our marketing, buy grandma's insulin, and that's where we get our ammo. And it gives the GM is like, okay, I only have to plan out a job or 2 ahead, and I know which job they've picked. Okay, but they're not going to get stuck spinning their wheels in some extremely vague, self-defined thing that doesn't really engage the GM. So this could work.
Yeah.
Am I babbling? Am I making sense?
No, you're making sense. Like I said, I think this is sort of focused on creating more story opportunities, story hooks, more than just like, ooh, cool gun, cool cyborg, cyber upgrade. I do want to make one minor note. Again, this PDF is very impressive, at least at Acrobat where I'm using it, because not only are a lot of things hyperlinked, so you can quickly, like all the little tabs for categories, I can just switch to vehicles or fashion or cyberware, or whatever. There's alt text
if I can jump in,
every image.
What's interesting, if you go back to the original Cyberpunk, I think rulebook, and certainly possibly the gearbooks, except my Chromebook thing has stopped loading now. No, I think it was the original rulebook. It was done in a kind of pseudo hypertext interface. The page design was a kind of pseudo hypertext thing. Obviously you can't click on a physical page, but it was designed as if you could. And now, of course, the technology is there, and it's nice that they're making proper advantage of it. Does rather ground it in the present day in terms of technology. I didn't. At no point did I feel this is the future. I am aware that I'm interrupting you and running with it, but I'm going to go with it. The one thing in particular the cyber fingers. I love the concept of the cyber fingers, the idea that you replace your entire hand with a cyber hand, but the fingers are interchangeable, and it's a Swiss Army cyber hand, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fantastic. Wow, very cool. And you can have 8 fingers or 10 fingers on each hand. And then you look at the options of the fingers that they give you in the catalogue, and they are all either James Bond or boring. I mean, I'm going to read through the list. The lighter cyber finger. Oh, whoa! It's a light. I'm sorry. Is this the 1970s? I thought this was Cyberpunk. There is no USB. There is no, you can jam your finger in the slot and it interfaces you straight away. There's not even a phone charger finger in there. There's no option. The scissors finger. There is a scissors finger. It's not a finger. It's 2. It takes up 2 of the fingers to be scissors. No, there's a complete, they've had the big idea and then a complete failure of imagination following it. And I felt that was a theme with a lot of the bits of this book. The good ideas are really good. The night market idea is really good. And then there's a certain lack of follow through. It's just like, and here's a bunch of night markets, and here's some floor plans for them. I felt it could have gone further. And admittedly, the original Chromebooks didn't. But the original Chromebooks were style over substance. They delivered exactly what they promised. This, for me, was it was a collection of +1 longswords with pretty handles.
Well, I'd have to disagree with that because I think there's a lot of, there are definitely items that are duds, like the flashlight finger and the lighter finger, as you mentioned. But there were a lot of items that I thought had really interesting story potential. I mean, I think my single favorite item in the book is in the vehicles. It's the Tansen bellhop, which is a gyrocopter that can fold up into a suitcase or a briefcase. Or,
I'm sorry, James Bond did that in You Only Live Twice.
But it's fun, James.
I know it's fun. It's not Cyberpunk. What was You Only Live Twice? That was 1970s?
That's fair. I think the thing is also, from my perspective, as being someone who's run a lot of Eclipse Phase, there's a game design, game running problem with high-tech stuff if you make it too powerful or too versatile. In Eclipse Phase, the technology is so advanced, it's basically magic, right? As we have read the book. And it's like, you can, everything's a computer. Everything can plug into everything else. You can program and design and engineer and fabricate whatever you want. So it's basically, if you could just vaguely describe something like, well, yeah, of course your machine can do that. Of course you can fabricate a nanoswarm to do that exact task and program and blah, 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 because it's so detached from reality. It's kind of like, I guess, the board game school of game design where you make everything into a big, here is the thing you can do with this, and there's no ambiguity, and you can, if you need bullets, you can store 2 bullets in your cyber finger to load into your gun for your assassination mission. And like, that's a very specific niche thing, but like, if you make it where you have an interface cyber finger and you can just plug in, do anything, there's a lot of ambiguity and it requires a lot of, and it becomes too powerful, right? With high tech items, it's very hard to like, this is too limited versus in real life. Like there's a little hacking device. It's called the Flipper Zero, I believe. And it just controls, it just lets you broadcast and transmit like Bluetooth and radio frequencies, and basically you can steal cars with it and like brick computers and do like cyber terrorism with it, like, and it's just like $100 little gadget. Do you want to make your game about having a Flipper Zero, or do you want to like be able to like, I have all these upgrades and I can do all these interesting things? And I get your frustration with these dud items, but like I found a lot of items had lateral story, things that you couldn't do with base items from the original, from Cyberpunk Red. But yeah, I don't know if it's a line that can even be like balanced at all because of the nature of high tech stuff. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I understand your frustration, but there was enough new options in items that I wasn't like different. Like a lot of the weapons have multi modes, like a shotgun with a net launcher on it. I thought that was neat. For like your bounty. Also, you can equip NPCs with them, so the players get like a price on their head, and the bounty hunter just like nets them and then hits them with a beanbag round or something like that. Your solo's not going to be having a good time after that. So yeah.
Yeah, the one I liked, the one that really made me laugh was the. I'm scrolling down to find it. It does not deserve a full page. The Gunmart Engage rocket launcher. It's a crap rocket launcher. It has a high chance of failing and blowing up as you fire that. That's a perfect NPC weapon. That's brilliant. Doesn't quite deserve an entire page of the book, but I love the idea of. Firstly, you put it in the hands of an NPC and they blow up as when they've got you at point blank range, ha ha ha, boom, and they go up, and it's a yakety sax moment. Or you give it to the PCs and it's the only weapon they've got. They pick it up off the ground. It's the dying moments of the firefight, and it's do they pull the trigger, giving them a very high chance of the whole thing going up in their faces. That's great. That's really funny.
I know. I love the Gunmart guns because they're like, if you have a critical failure, your gun it destroys itself. And like, if someone rips this gun with a smart link out, it just destroys. You can't I love the terrible guns because then you can also do a mission where the players are captured and their only weapons are Gunmart weapons or those it's I love these gimmicky kind of like terrible weapons. As an option.
Okay, so if that's your favorite, and was your favorite, Ross, the
gyro
foldable gyrocopter?
Yeah. I thought that was neat.
I think. I mean, I liked the linear frames. I think every party is going to want a Grundy, which is like a combat. It's like, what if my sport ute was also a combat bulldozer, made from junk by Mad Max. But I liked the idea of the digital gladiator, which is that, okay, instead of literally murdering each other, we're just going to have a video game off with our avatars. And that the whole thing is based on, you're gonna use the rules of the role-playing game to generate your little digital guy.
Yeah.
This is probably in practice a gigantic hassle.
It's 100%. You design an adventure around it where you have to one player has to go in and do this and the other players are like sabotaging it or betting on it or doing something or like that. That's the whole thing. Oh, my favorite weapon is the Nomad Rocker because it's a gun that shoots rocks.
Yes. Yes, I like that well.
I love the blunderbuss is now in Cyberpunk. That is a fun little thing. And then they have the machine the crowd burster, which has a sonic assault cannon or a loudspeaker on it, and the definitely not Hello Cutie, definitely not something that is trademark luxury assault pistol. There are a lot of fun little weapons in here.
Yeah, the trademark thing is interesting. You go back to the original Chromebook, and they're talking about. There's a BMW in there. There's a Sikorsky Mitsubishi helicopter, which is quite clearly a Cherokee, just rebadged. I can't remember what they call it. That clearly a lawyer has had a word with them in between then and now, and these are all invented
CD Projekt Red money being very useful.
No trademarks that you will recognize at all, except there is. I'm talking about favorite weapons. It's not a favorite. It's a favorite touch, which is the Slam Dance Tamansky claw, which is it's Wolverine claws in a glove. That's just what it is. It's they go schnicked and everything, but it's pink. I love the fact it's pink.
Yep.
It's like you want to be Wolverine, you've got to wear a pink glove. Then it goes back to the how secure in your sexuality are you?
Yeah.
And back in the day, this would have been 15-year-olds in their basement going, I'm not wearing a pink glove. I don't care how cool the weapon is. I'm not wearing pink. Or wearing pink and being mocked for it.
Yeah.
I feel 15-year-olds today are going to be a little bit like, no, this is fun.
Yeah. Today, I would hope at least it's a non-issue. Certainly for my kids, it's absolutely a non-issue.
The point I want to make about the PDF that I forgot to mention earlier.
Sorry, I jumped in and digressed for about 20 minutes.
Let's rewind 5 minutes here.
Every image in this, if you hold the mouse over, it has alt text describing what the image shows. Which is something that like Blue Sky social media platform, you can add a little alt text. And basically this is for people with vision disabilities being able to like understand what the picture is showing.
Yeah. And credits the artist
and
in the alt text as well.
Yes. Yeah. So every picture is
which
credited,
is nice.
Yeah.
Respect. respect for that. By the way, James, the alt text for the Slam Dance says it's purple and not pink.
We were just talking Ludonarrative Discord about like how color calibration is impossible. You can't keep your colors matched between devices because everything is a different. See, this is the point for whatever listener was talking about that. Whenever you listen to this months later, just remember every color you think that you see, everyone sees something differently. Not just because of their inherent, different ability to perceive color, but also because of technology.
This message is in a time capsule from the past. Yeah. You were right. Tell the future you were right all along.
Basically. So we have a lot of weapons. We have a lot of gear, and then
there are a lot of weapons. Can I just throw in there that I love the little shopping cart around the page numbers? I'm like, that's cute. Someone had fun with that, and it landed. That worked for me. Whoever did that layout. 10 out of 10, no notes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, I see what and there's a little Wi-Fi strength icon there and a battery power operated, which if it had been me, I would have had the battery power go down the further in the book you got.
It does do that.
Does it?
Yeah, like at least on weapons, it's almost empty. And then like at apps, it's almost full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was expecting it to go down in finer gradations than that, but yeah, it does. Okay, that's good. That is cool.
I don't know. I'm like paging through, and I'm like, I think every section. Yeah,
it's every section.
So it must be like section template. So
we did that in a Warhammer FRP supplement, which was about an eclipse, and the bar at the top of the page had the moon slowly moving across the sun in each chapter. I was pleased with that. But that was 1995.
I recently reviewed a PDF for RPP After Hours where it was a mega dungeon, but they had a progress bar as you flip through the PDF. Every single page slightly incremented the progress bar. So it's a cool idea if you want to take all the extra work.
I mean, the thought that occurs to me, especially for a dungeon, is you start off with this big long candle and then it burns down and has like the wax gooing out, and by the end of the book it's all gooed out over to the page number at the bottom.
Yeah. That's very cool. I like that.
That may just be my Catholicism showing.
I mean, Warhammer fans would love it too. So it's your
Catholicism, Warhammer. There are meaningful differences, but a lot of the aesthetic there's overlap.
Yeah, no, that Venn diagram has a lot of overlap, is what I'm saying. I do want to talk about the night markets. As we mentioned earlier, there's 6 of them in particular, and each of them has like a multiple pages to describe them. They talk about the frequency of how often they are run, who runs it, what does it sell, where is it held, how do you score an invite, getting in on the action, and security. And then they have the person running it, full stat block for them, a full page.
Full page.
And then like I said, the tactical map, which I think is also not just for tactics, but also I think Cyberpunk Red is very oriented to virtual tabletop stuff. And so even if you're not doing a combat scene, players want to have a nice little, like, my little guy's over here and he's going to go over here. And then we're going to have a scene over here. And then, it's sort of an immersion thing for the virtual tabletop players.
Yeah.
We'll make out in the little green car by next to section 2.
Yeah. There's a subsidiary supplement to this, Black Chrome Plus. I don't know what you have to do to get Black Chrome Plus.
I think that's a free PDF download. Yeah.
It's only 20 pages, but that includes the virtual tabletop backgrounds without any text on them. So clearly that's what they're designed for, as well as little counters for PCs and NPCs, or at least it's artwork from the books in little circles. But you can use it. So I mean, that's a nice touch. I'm not a VTT fan myself, but I know a lot of people who are. If that's your style of gaming, then this is really nicely put together for those players. It's interesting. The Plus stuff has way more artwork. I mean, of not just item stuff, but characters and situations and people actually doing stuff than the main supplement does. I don't know if that's reusing art from elsewhere, from other supplements, or concept art from the video game. But it felt a lot more alive. It had a lot more personality and a lot more kind of character. And this is what you do with this stuff, as opposed to this is stuff.
Going back to the whole RPG, video game, RPG, like interlink thing, I realize the original gear guides, that was the predecessor to DLC as we know it, right? Like long before there was horse armor in Skyrim, there were players like I paid $20 for this book. I want to be a Dragoon full conversion cyborg. And that's, I want to be able to stomp on everybody. And yeah.
I was too close. I never saw it. Oh.
I want the EVE Online monocle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. But I really like each of the 6 night markets in this book are really well written. I find them pretty evocative. I think my favorite is Wood Chipper's Block Party because they talk about not the food. Like you can get street corn there.
It's the only source for good street corn.
Yeah. And I like that stuff because we not many RPGs emphasize like daily life stuff like eating, like food, and like there's different types of food, like what are your characters feeling and talking and reacting, who do you share a meal with. And also I like the fixer who runs this is a heavily modified cyborg, and like she doesn't need bodyguards because she's a walking tank. The security is for everyone else, not for her. and it's like a big like car park area with a lot of vehicles. It's run by nomads, so it's basically a big parking lot with tents and other people set up as a nice little
you just back in your snake oil trading RV, drop the back, and you're like, step right up.
So
get Colonel Murphy's cyberware. It will cure what ails you, my friend.
Yeah.
But talking about those little details and the lifestyle stuff, page 130, Lifestyles in Detail is what it's called. And it's the class system of Night City. It's basically, what is your income level? What level do you subsist at? Well, this is what your life is like. And each, there's 4 sections: kibble, generic pre-pack, good pre-pack, and fresh food. Your kibble is, you're on €100 a month. Fresh food is €1,500 a month, but it tells you what you eat, how you communicate with people, what sort of entertainment you enjoy, what level of entertainment, how you get around. And it's just that class divide, that income divide in a really interesting one page. It's one page of the book, and suddenly it puts everything else in context, within the context of the game world, in a really interesting way that is directly relevant to player characters and non-player characters and anyone who is just thinking about the world of Cyberpunk Red. For me, that was the moment I hit that. It was like, yes, I want more of this stuff. Oh, and here's who runs the night markets.
This is a book that maybe you use to answer questions about why would I want to play this character type? Because it's like, it's obvious why you would want to play a solo, and it's obvious why you'd want to play a rocker boy, and it's obvious, solo, I'm going to get out my violence power fantasy. Rocker boy, I'm going to get out I'm the popular kid that everyone listens to and pays attention to fantasy. It's like, why would I want to play an executive who's boring? And then you read this and you're like, oh, because if I'm an executive, my housing and food is what I have now in this dystopia. Whereas 90% of the people in the Cyberpunk Red dystopia are eating garbage, are just eating dog food, stuff I would not give my hamster. In the same way that this Chromebook also is like, here's why you want to be a fixer, because if you're not a fixer, every single economic transaction you do, you will get screwed. If you're an executive, it won't matter because you're rich enough that you're like, yeah, you screwed me, but I didn't really notice it. But if you're the fixer, you're like, no, I'm actually the master of my financial universe. I'm at good pre-pack and aiming for fresh food. I'm coming for you, you little cherry tomatoes. I still have no reason that I would play a media character. I'm like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me.
The media types have always seemed a little odd, out of place.
This is our cyberpunk party. We have Furiosa from Mad Max. We have
John Wick
solo we have John Wick the solo, and we have this podcaster.
Oh no! I'm the dead weight of the party.
Oh no! Yeah. I made Ross sad and myself.
Yes, your cyberpunk options are limited, Ross.
Yeah, darn. I'll about the multi-class.
A party of three media characters. Shit, we're screwed, guys. We're screwed. Game over.
I remember reading a review. I can't remember if it was for Cyberpunk Red or this book or some other book with like a lifestyle. Like there are a lot of RPGs that have this. Like this is how much a month it costs to have a good or a cheap or a bad one. Shadowrun and a lot of other RPGs. And they like it's one review of it was like, I don't understand why this is in the book. There's no game mechanics for this. It's just like not everything has to have game mechanics, all right? Just because you eat fresh food every day does not give you +2 to dodge checks, all right? You know, it's just... God.
Anytime you make a breath freshness check, you may automatically succeed.
Just keep in mind, like the average player character, Murder Hobo, is just a miserable person living in a box, as opposed to, and that's like not what most people are looking for in life. They're looking for, you know, I don't know, happiness and meaningful life, rather than like, I can swing this sword really fast and I can chop off so many heads. Because this book is pretty focused on, you know, gear. Who sells it? How do you get it? What should you get? Again, this isn't like substantial upgrades. They're lateral changes, I think. Yeah, were there any other elements to this?
I mean, I thought that it knew what it was trying to do. It is something that trad games have done a lot, that maybe you can build a game that doesn't need to have this done, but this game is not the game that doesn't need to have this done. I read through this from sort of the lens of, okay, so I made a character when we did the review of Cyberpunk Red, and I'm like, oh, and this is exactly the gun that I would buy for my starting character. Okay, and this is exactly the vehicle. Yeah, this is the exact other thing I'd get for my starting character, and this is the vehicle that he'd want, and this is the vehicle he'd be stuck in. And that's pretty much all you need to play a Nomad.
Yeah. It's an interesting contrast with the other gear book that we've looked at in this season, which was Double Tap for Night's Black Agents, which is a tech espionage game. And is likewise, it's full of the cool stuff in a kind of present day, near future, James Bondy kind of idiom. But that is very much a GM's book, I felt. There was cool equipment in there, but each one was kind of tagged with stuff that could be used as adventure seeds or incident seeds or vignettes within an ongoing scenario. There's very little of that in this book. This is very player facing. This is, here's the gear, here's why you'd want it, here's what it will do to your stats and your rolls. I was disappointed because the original Chromebooks, when they came up, and you can find them on archive.org, it is well worth having a look. They were not just groundbreaking, they were trend-setting. They came out, certainly when we were doing stuff with Hogshead 4 or 5 years later, we were looking back to the Chromebook and going, how we need to do something as cool as this, that looks as good as this, within a different genre, but trying to emulate that sense of stuff that jumped off the page and that made players want it. This is not that book. This is not the original Chromebooks reinvented for the 2025. At the same time, it does its job admirably. It sets a lot of the scene, certainly the vehicles and stuff, give you a good sense of the background of what Night City feels like. And then, as I say, there are these little moments, these pages or just incidents or little bits of detail that flash up and you go, that's brilliant. That will bring your game to life. That will give you inspiration for possibly just an evening's play or possibly an entire campaign or an adventure or a really interesting NPC or a MacGuffin. There's good stuff in here. Yeah, I don't know if it's an essential purchase. If you're I'm kind of getting into traditional review territory here. Should you buy this? 7.5 out of 5 out of 10. That is not the rating I'm giving this book. If you are not a Cyberpunk player, there is no reason to buy this book. I don't think there's anything here that, yes, you can transplant this stuff to another game, but there's nothing so brilliant in here that you would necessarily want to.
There are a lot of assumptions about the background.
Yep.
You know, it's like this makes the existence of this vehicle makes sense within the context of the business wars. But it's not something that you're going to just be like, oh, we'll just flip this into Eclipse Phase, which is, several quantum levels higher in technology. And it's like, why do I want an armored bulldozer in Eclipse Phase when I could become an armored bulldozer.
Yeah.
I mean, even in Shadowrun, there are a couple items that would probably be useful, but like the differences in game systems and stuff like that would not really make it worth it. And I feel like Shadowrun probably has equivalent items for a lot of these things, or similar enough. Yeah, the items themselves, like I said, they have different functionality. They have story hooks for them, but there's nothing. Yeah, there was nothing that blew me away in terms of like, oh God, this is the coolest item ever. There's so many ideas I can work with. Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a way to think about like shopping sessions. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, to make them something more than what they are. We're going back to this, like, this is a legacy game, right? And like, there are a lot of players who like, no, I want it to be the same, just with different numbers, I guess. So like, I want my shopping sessions where I just look at books and buy things. I don't want to have to go to a nightmare. I don't want to role play. I don't know, like, don't drag me into the future. Let me cling to this bit of nostalgia. It's all I have.
Can we just get somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's tricky, but if you want to advance the idea of the shopping session or make shopping a more interesting and lively part of the game, like, this is something to think about. Like, honestly, you know what? This would be, I could see this working in red markets. Like, you can't just buy the thing you want at your enclave. You have to go to like this night market, which is at a different enclave, and it's like a side.
Well, and it's like, what can I get here? You can buy the shotgun that's the single shot shotgun that's built out of plumbing supplies, or you can get the rocket launcher that has a 1 in 20 chance.
And it makes a lot of sense in red markets because it's a very much a scarcity.
Like, why is everything crap? Have you looked at the world?
So I think we kind of wrapped it up. So
we've covered it. I mean, gearbooks are not complicated creatures. The question is, does it look cool? Does it make you feel like, oh, my guy wants this? And, this, I would give this a B grade of, my guy wants this.
Yeah.
It's not revolutionary, but if you're playing Cyberpunk, it's kind of fun.
Oh, just one final point. Fake adverts for in-world products. If they have to have a reason, please make them good. Please make them look like adverts. Please give the impression that you have looked at an advertisement at some point. Role-playing games have been doing this. People have been go, oh, RoboCop did that. No, before that, the Star Wars role-playing game did that in 1986 with adverts for R2 series robots. Full page in-world adverts, and they were brilliant. The adverts in this book are not fit to wipe the soil from the Tatooine dust from the boots of those 1986 ones. Cute idea, doesn't quite pull it off. And I think that for me is if I was, the single line for this book, there's some lovely ideas in there, just doesn't, there's a lack of follow through.
If they were really wanting to go with the app thing, they should have emulated mobile or like apps and made them really annoying.
God, yes.
Buy this gun now, my lord. With some like.
Where's the pop-ups? Where's the demand for buying? No, you can do that if you buy 50 diamonds. Which will only cost you some arbitrary amount of currency that makes it hard to do the maths in your head.
Yeah.
This isn't the dystopia where you're going to see all the reviews of the products where it's like, well, on one hand, the super clotting hypo did save my life in that gunfight. I definitely would have bled out if I hadn't slammed that in. On the other hand, the case is not great. It's kind of it feels cheap, so I'm gonna give this 4 stars. It definitely saved my life in an instance of terrible violence.
I hate the fact it's pink.
Forced.
Yeah.
There it is.
3.5 stars.
So free for the next Cyberpunk Chrome book. Just have a bunch of idiotic reviews, just the real dumb, and then like occasionally one good one. And occasionally one like, well, if you file down the part marked XFB, this suddenly becomes a full auto.
There you go. Yeah. You gotta have the good and the best reviews. That's a really good idea. So but speaking of reviews, our next episode is one we each get to choose a game. We each get to choose a book. And so this is going to be my choice for our 13th episode. We're going to be doing riffs Ultimate Edition, the Palladium post-apocalyptic kitchen sink power fantasy role-playing game, the best and the worst of Palladium all in one book, and I'm very looking forward to hear your opinions on Greg being subjected to this game. So it is I don't know. Well, yeah, you have to listen to it. You have to wait for that episode because but yeah, I cannot wait to dive into this book once again. I just finished a Savage Worlds Rifts campaign last year, and and so I'm well versed in the lore of Rifts. But yeah, so yeah, that's something to look forward to.
See you next time, Glitter Boy.
Yeah. See you around, Glitter Boy. So yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you all so much for supporting Letter Narrative Dissidents. Be sure to check us out on our Discord, and don't forget to read the show notes on our website, letternarrativedissidents.com. Those put together by James. They're very good. Lots of notes, and if you missed anything, please let us know. But yeah, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, James.
You're always welcome.